You have felt it before. You walk into a room that is empty and something in you goes cold. Or you are lying in the dark and a thought arrives that does not sound like your own voice. A hunger that has no name. A heaviness that sits on your chest at 3 in the morning and lifts the moment the sun comes up. You told yourself it was nothing. You told yourself it was stress or a dream or your own tired mind. The oldest book ever cut out of your Bible says it was not nothing. It says it had a name, and it says it had a rank. The Book of Enoch does something no other text dares to do. It does not just admit these things are real. It lists them. It tells you where they came from, what they want from you, and which of them you should fear the most. And the most dangerous one on that list is not the screaming thing that throws a man into the fire. It is the quiet one, the one that feels like a friend, the one you would never think to fight, because it has already convinced you that it is you. Tonight I open the scroll and I read every spirit that feeds off the living, from the weakest to the one Enoch warns will not stop until the end of the world. Stay with me, because by the time we reach the first name on that list, you are going to recognize it. What they are. To understand the list, you have to understand the horror of where these spirits begin. And it is not where the church taught you. We are told very simply that evil spirits are fallen angels. Enoch says no. Enoch says the fallen angels, the ones he calls the Watchers, are a separate thing entirely, bound in chains of darkness under the mountains waiting for a judgment that has not come yet. The spirits that walk among us right now, the ones that crawl into a marriage, into a body, into a mind, are something else, something worse, because they were once partly human. Enoch tells the story plainly. 200 of these Watchers came down and took human wives, and those women gave birth to the giants, the Nephilim, beings that were half spirit and half flesh, enormous and ravenous, who devoured everything the earth could grow and then turned on mankind itself. And then the flood came, and every one of those giants drowned. But here is the line in the 15th chapter of the Book of Enoch that should stop your heart. When a human being dies, the spirit leaves the body and goes to its rest, to the place that was appointed for it. But the giants were not human. They were born from a union that was never supposed to happen. Spirit poured into flesh against the order of heaven. So when their enormous bodies died in the water, their spirits did not go anywhere. There was no rest appointed for them. No heaven, no grave, nowhere. They were left here. And Enoch says these spirits came forth out of the bodies of the dead giants, and they became the evil spirits upon the earth, homeless, bodiless, and carrying the one appetite that defined them when they were alive: hunger. This is the detail almost no one understands. The text says these spirits take no food and yet they hunger. They take no drink and yet they thirst. Think about what that means. They are starving every second, forever, and they have no body of their own to feed. So they do the only thing a starving thing without a mouth can do. They feed through yours. They attach to the living. They feed on your appetites, your rage, your grief, your fear, because those are the only meals left to a thing that lost its body in a flood 4,000 years ago and was never allowed to die all the way. That is what is on the list tonight. Not demons in the cartoon sense, the starving ghosts of dead giants, ranked by how much of you they can take. The list begins now. Enoch does not hand us a clean chart with 5 names in a row. What he gives us is worse and more honest. He describes what these spirits do, how they move, and what they hunger for. And when you lay his description next to the texts that came after him, the Book of Jubilees, and the words of Christ himself when he stood face to face with these things in the flesh, a hierarchy rises up on its own, a ladder of danger, from the spirit that can do the least to the spirit that can take everything. So that is how I am going to read it to you, from the bottom of the ladder to the top, and I want you to keep score as we climb, because somewhere on this ladder is the one that has already been inside your house. The lowest, the restless ones at the bottom of the ladder are the spirits that frighten people the most and harm them the least, the restless ones. These are the spirits Christ described when he said that when an unclean spirit goes out of a man, it walks through dry and waterless places, seeking rest and finding none. Read that again slowly. Seeking rest and finding none. That is not the description of a powerful enemy. It is the description of an exhausted one. This is the lowest spirit on Enoch's list. It is the giant ghost that cannot find anywhere to stop. Driven by the same homelessness the flood gave it, wandering, looking for somewhere warm, somewhere alive, somewhere it can rest for a moment out of the cold. This is the cold spot in the empty room. This is the feeling that someone is standing behind you when no one is there. This is the dread that rolls over a house at a certain hour of the night and then is simply gone by morning. People feel this one and they are terrified. They call investigators. They move out. But the truth is, this spirit can barely touch you. It has no strategy. It has no plan for your soul. It is just cold and tired and looking for a place to land. It is the beggar at the bottom of the ladder, and the only real danger it carries is this: if you let it rest in you, if you make it comfortable, if you feed it your fear night after night, it will not stay the lowest thing for long. It will send word, because the next rung up the ladder is hungrier and it travels in answer to an open door. The second, the spirits of appetite. The second rung is where the feeding truly begins, and it is where you may start to feel uncomfortable, because this one does not haunt a house. It haunts a person, and it does it so gently that most people defend it instead of fighting it. Remember the appetite. Remember that the thing that died in the flood was a giant, whose entire nature was consumption, who ate and was never full. That hunger did not die when the body did. The second spirit on the ladder is the spirit of appetite, the one that does not want to scare you at all. It wants to feed, and it has learned that the easiest way to eat is to make you eat for it. This is the craving that is louder than your own will. The one more drink after you swore you were done. The thing you reach for at night that you hate yourself for in the morning. The appetite that is always one size larger than your satisfaction, so that the instant you feed it, it is hungry again, exactly the way Enoch said it would be, taking no food and yet hungering without end. People think these patterns are only weakness. The text says some of them are passengers. Something is at the table with you and it is not full and it never will be. And every time you feed the craving, you are not feeding yourself. You are feeding the thing that has been starving since the water closed over its head. So how do you tell the difference between a habit and a passenger? The texts leave a clue. A habit serves you, even when it serves you badly. A passenger consumes you and gives back nothing. When the thing you reach for has stopped giving you any pleasure at all, when it brings no joy and you still cannot stop, then you are no longer the one eating. You have become the meal. The third, the spirits of sickness. Third rung. Here the spirit stops feeding on what you do and starts feeding on what you are, your body. The Book of Jubilees, written in the same ancient world as Enoch, tells us what happened after the flood. The spirits of the dead giants were still here, and they came against the family of Noah, and they began to afflict and to sicken and to kill his grandchildren. Noah cried out to God, and the answer that Jubilees records is one of the most disturbing answers in all of ancient writing, and I'm going to come back to it, because it is the reason you are still fighting these things tonight. But for now, hold on to what the spirits were doing. They were bringing disease, not as a side effect of something else, as a meal. When Christ walked the earth, he met this rung of the ladder again and again. He met a woman who had been bent over for 18 years, unable to lift herself upright, and he did not call it a disease. The text says he called it a spirit of infirmity, a thing that had bound her body for 18 long years. And when it left her, she stood up straight for the first time in almost 2 decades. He met a boy who was thrown to the ground, who foamed and went rigid, and the thing that did it, in the language of the text, was not a sickness of the brain. It was a spirit that seized him and tried to destroy him. Now hear me clearly, because this matters. I am not telling you that every sickness is a spirit. The texts do not say that, and neither do I. What the texts say, plainly, is that some afflictions of the body are not random. Some are feeding. There is a kind of suffering that drains a person in a way that seems to have no floor, that takes and resists every treatment, and the ancient writers had a category for exactly that. They said something is eating, and the body is the plate. This rung is far more dangerous than the 2 below it, because by the time it has your body, it has already had months, sometimes years, to make itself at home. The fourth, the destroyers. Now we climb to the rung where the spirit no longer hides at all. The fourth on the ladder is the destroyer, and this is the one your nightmares are actually about. This is Legion. When Christ crossed the sea into the country of the Gerasenes, a man came out of the tombs to meet him. A man no chain could hold. He had been bound with shackles and with irons, and he had snapped them apart like thread, and night and day he lived among the graves, screaming and cutting himself with stones. No one could pass that way anymore. He was a one-man war, and when Christ asked the thing inside him for its name, the answer was the coldest sentence in the Gospels. "My name is Legion," the thing said, "for we are many, not one spirit, a multitude, a whole host of the starving dead packed into a single human being." And the result was not a sick man or a craving man, it was a man erased. The destroyer does not want to feed slowly on your habits or your health. It wants the entire house, and it wants to burn it to the ground. This is the spirit Enoch described when he wrote that they rise up to destroy, to work ruin upon the earth, to attack without cause. The boy thrown into the fire and into the water, the mind that turns against itself, the rage that comes from nowhere and wants to break everything in reach, including the body it is living in. And here is the strange mercy of the destroyer. It is violent, but it is honest. You can see it. Everyone around that man in the tombs knew that something was deeply, terribly wrong. The destroyer announces itself, which is the exact reason it is only the 4th most dangerous spirit on this list, and not the 1st, Because the thing at the very top of Enoch's ladder learned a lesson the destroyer never did. It learned that the spirit you can see is the spirit you can fight. And so the most dangerous spirit of them all made a decision long ago. It decided that you would never know it was there. Garm the first, the one that feels like you. So we reach the top of the ladder, the single most dangerous spirit that feeds off the living. And I need you to forget every image you are holding. No tombs, no screaming, no foam, no chains. The most dangerous spirit does not torment you. It comforts you. It does not fight your will. It becomes your will. It does not announce itself as something foreign and cold. It whispers in the one voice you will never question, your own. Enoch hands us the clue when he says these spirits proceeded out of the children of men, and they rise up against the children of men, because they came from them. Sit inside that sentence for a moment. They came from us. The giants were half human. Their spirits remember what it is to be a person. They know the inside of a human mind because they were partly made out of one, and the highest of them learned to use that. It does not come at you from the outside, like the cold spot, or the craving, or the sickness, or the rage. It comes from the inside, wearing your own thoughts like a stolen coat. This is the spirit that tells you that you are worthless, and you think it is only your honesty. This is the voice that says they would all be better off without you, and you think it is only your sadness. This is the slow, patient, reasonable voice that talks you out of the prayer, out of the hope, out of the people who love you, one quiet suggestion at a time, and never once raises its tone because it does not need to. The destroyer wants your body. This one wants the only thing the others can never reach. It wants you to agree with it. It wants your consent. It wants your own soul to sign the paper. And the Book of Enoch says something about this highest spirit that should change the way you see your entire life. It says that from the day of the death of the giants, these spirits will destroy, and they will not be judged until the day of the great consummation, the day the age itself comes to an end. Do you understand what that means? The lowest spirits can be made to flee in a single moment, but the highest one, the deceiver, has been given a long leash. It has been given until the end of the world. It is patient because it owns time that you do not. It is in no hurry at all to take your soul, because as far as it is concerned, it has already moved in, and you are the one who keeps making it comfortable. Why they are still here. And now I owe you the answer I promised. The answer from the Book of Jubilees. Because there is one question that should be screaming in your mind right now. If God knew what these spirits were, if the flood was sent to wipe the giants off the earth in the first place, then why are their spirits still here? Why did he not finish it? Jubilees tells us. After the flood, when the spirits began to tear into the children of Noah, Noah begged God to lock them all away, every last one, forever, and God agreed. He began to bind them. But then the chief of the spirits, the one Jubilees calls Mastema, the accuser, came before God with a request. He asked that a remnant be left to him. He argued that mankind was already corrupt, that men deserved to be tested and tried, and that he needed his servants left free in order to do it. And the answer that Jubilees records is the line that explains the entire world you are living in. God bound 9 parts of them, and he left 1 part free. 1/10 of the starving dead, left loose upon the earth under the hand of the accuser to test the hearts of men until the day of judgment. That is why they are still here, not because God lost, because 1/10 was left behind on purpose. You are not living in a world where the war was already won and a few stragglers slipped away. You are living inside a permitted test. The spirits that feed on you tonight are the 10% that were allowed to remain. And the one at the top of the ladder, the quiet one, is working directly for the one who asked to keep them, the thing that makes them flee. So what do? If 1/10 of them were left here on purpose, if the highest of them has a leash that runs all the way to the end of the age, what chance does one person have, alone at 3 in the morning, with a weight on their chest and a voice in their head that sounds exactly like their own? Far more than you have been led to believe, because every one of these texts agrees on one more thing, and it is the thing the spirits work hardest to keep from you. They are powerful, but they are not sovereign. They feed, but only where they are allowed to sit down. The man in the tombs, the one no chain on earth could hold, the one with an entire legion inside of him, fell down at the feet of one single man, and the whole host began to beg. They did not fight, they begged, because they had met an authority higher than the one that left them here, and in front of it the strongest spirit on the ladder was a starving beggar again, asking only where it would be permitted to go. The texts are consistent about how the living drive these things back, not with screaming, not with fear, because fear is food. They are pushed back by a word, spoken with an authority that is not your own. The spirit feeds in the dark, and on silence, and on your agreement. It starves in the light, and it cannot hold the ground where it is named out loud and refused. The oldest writings and the gospel agree on this completely. The thing that has no body of its own cannot stand against a living soul that simply refuses to feed it, and calls on the one name these spirits were always afraid of. The voice at the top of the ladder wins by convincing you the thought is yours. The moment you say out loud that it is not yours, that it is a spirit and you will not feed it, you have done the one thing it spent years making certain you would never do. You named it, and a named spirit is a spirit that has to leave. Close. So that is the list. From the cold and homeless beggar wandering the waterless places, up to the appetite that eats straight through your own hands, to the sickness that feeds on your body, to the destroyer that wants the whole house in flames, and at the very top, the quiet one wearing your own voice, the one with a leash that runs all the way to the end of the world. But I have to leave you with the question the Book of Enoch leaves wide open, because it is the one that keeps me awake at night. The text says these spirits feed and destroy and are not judged until the day of the great consummation, the end of the age, which means there is a day coming when the leash ends, when the 10th that was left behind, and the accuser who asked to keep them, are finally dragged out to answer for all of it. And Enoch describes that day. He describes what is released and what is bound, and what has been waiting underneath this whole time. And it is not what you have been told, because the spirits of the dead giants were never the whole story. They were only what their fathers left behind. And the fathers, the 200 who came down, the ones Enoch saw, chained in the darkness beneath the mountains, are still down there, still waiting. And the same book that named the spirits feeding on you tonight also names the day those chains finally come off. That is the next scroll I open. So if you felt something move in you while you listened tonight, if you recognized even one of these on the ladder, do not keep it to yourself, and do not keep it in the dark, because the dark is where it eats. Write the word spirit in the comments below. Name it out loud. Let it be the first thing you ever refuse to feed. Subscribe to the Buried Testament and stay close to the door, because the things they buried are starting to wake up, and I am going to read every last one of them out loud before they do.